Hi. So I decided to do my project over Mr. Robot, more specifically, the trauma that leads to Mr. Robot. So, the show Mr. Robot, created by Sam Esmail, touches on many themes throughout the run of the series. On the surface, the show is about hackers bringing down the world economy and capitalism. But as we delve deeper into the story, we see that the major theme throughout the series is about trauma and how it is different for everyone. We deal with our trauma differently, and we all have our own coping mechanisms. It's about the extraordinary things that our brains will do in order to keep us from harm. It's also about overcoming your trauma by facing the truth and accepting what happened to you instead of denying it or pulling the wool over your eyes. The only way to truly heal from your pain is to brave the world as it is and learn how to navigate through the bad parts so you can appreciate the good things in your life. So, just a quick little synopsis. Mr. Robot centers around the life of Elliot Alderson, a cybersecurity engineer by day and a vigilante hacker by night. So, episode 1 starts off with Elliot admitting that he's talking to himself. So, Elliot also thinks that he is being followed by men in suits, and he believes that they're following him because of his extraordinary hacking abilities and the fact that he's a vigilante, and that, people don't like him because he has this power, the power he wields. So, by the end of the first episode, we learn a lot about Elliot, and we learn a lot about who he is and what we learn that he suffers from paranoia, he suffers from social anxiety disorder, he suffers from extreme isolation and loneliness, and he also does not like to be touched. His psychologist says that he is angry and that he suffers from delusions. He also had an abusive mother and is a regular drug user. Okay, so the first glimpse of Elliot's past that we are shown is his mother Magda burning him with a cigarette in the arm. Magda is shown to viewers to be not only emotionally abusive, but physically abusive as well. So when Elliot does speak about his father, he says that his father was his best friend. He, recalls all of these great memories surrounding his father. He also states that his father died of cancer when Elliot was a kid. Elliot was believed that the cancer his dad had was caused by his job at E-Corp. So throughout the run of the show, we're led to believe that this is why Elliot has so much rage towards E-Corp. He blames E-Corp for his father's cancer and his father's subsequent passing because of the cancer. Well, this all comes to head in the final season as it is revealed that Elliot's father, Edward, was sexually abusing Elliot. And Elliot blames E-Corp for his father's abuse, not just the cancer like we were originally led to think. So I believe that Elliot blamed E-Corp for his father's abuse because Elliot's father not only got cancer from this job, but then this job fired him. So he thinks that that was so stressful that that's why he started abusing Elliot. And, if that wouldn't have happened, if E-Corp wasn't evil, then Elliot wouldn't have endured all of this abuse that he did. So as we delve deeper into the story, it is revealed that Mr. Robot is not actually there. He is just one of Elliot's delusions, a delusion that has been with Elliot since he was still a kid. Mr. Robot is Elliot's protector, and this is why we see him appear anytime Elliot is faced with conflict. All of the memories of his loving father were actually part of his delusions. Mr. Robot looks exactly like Edward, and this is why Elliot had memories of a loving father, because he was having memories of him and Mr. Robot. But not only that, I wanted to touch on another point is that his father was very kind and showed a lot of interest in hanging out with Elliot and letting him skip school to go to the beach and taking him to the movies and not having repercussions when Elliot was caught stealing. But later we come to realize that this is because this was part of Edward's grooming. And this was Edward grooming Elliot. And so it really puts into perspective, those memories that Elliot does have is, they're all very, you see him in a different light once you know what happens at the end. So Elliot also suffers from dissociative identity disorder. And dissociative identity disorder is a very protective coping mechanism, also known as DID. And DID is usually the result of a severe physical or sexual trauma. Disassociation is a way to survive. So before DID was called DID, it was called multiple personality disorder. But now, as there's more research and more research, it is now called DID because it's different pieces of one personality instead of different personalities. All of these pieces are one personality. So it's also research also shows that there is very little shared memory between personalities. So this is why Mr. Robot doesn't know what Elliot's doing, or Elliot doesn't know what Mr. Robot's doing. This is why Elliot is so concerned when Mr. Robot takes over and leaves at night and he has no recollection of what happens. This is why Elliot thinks that he killed Tyrell, because he doesn't share the memories that Mr. Robot shares when Mr. Robot is, dominating the dominant personality in the host. So DID can also result in gaps of memory, which we see when Elliot wakes up in Tyrell's, SUV. He has no idea what happened. He thinks he killed him. So all of these things really point toward, Elliot has DID. But not only that, his psychologist confirms it. So dissociating does not help build resilience. It only lets you escape the horror of a traumatic event. So with DID, you never really, confront, you never face, you never deal with the trauma because you're escaping it instead of dealing with it head on. So that's why it is not, it's not good. And we see that with Elliot. We see that his DID, it represses his memory so far that he doesn't even remember it happened. He represses his memory so far he doesn't even remember he has a sister. And he remembers he has a sister after she gets mad that he kisses her, which I thought was interesting that he kissed her, because it's almost like, she cared about him so much and he only understood that, caring equals like a sexual relationship since he was abused. And, it kind of shows like the effects that his abuse had on him later in life. So Elliot has not multiple personalities. He has, dissociative personality, whatever. So these are the different personalities of Elliot Alderson. There's young Elliot. Young Elliot's role is to endure the abuse. Next, we have the Persecutor. And the Persecutor, it takes form as his mother, which duh, because she was so awful. And the Persecutor is there because Elliot blames himself for the abuse. And so this personality blames Elliot for the abuse. Then we have Mastermind. So at the very end of the series, we realized that we had never actually seen real Elliot. The whole time, Mastermind was in control of the host. So Mastermind was the one behind all of it. And Mastermind's job was to, he was the one that held all of Elliot's rage. Mr. Robot, like I said, was Elliot's protector. His job was to protect Elliot. That's why he had been there since Elliot was a kid, since Elliot started being abused. That's when Mr. Robot came. Mastermind, on the other hand, is the youngest personality, and he had only been around a month. So I just want to very quickly touch on Darlene. So, Darlene is a very complicated character, and her ability to love unconditionally is simultaneously her greatest strength and weakness. She suffers from panic attacks and is terrified of being alone. And this may be why she still sticks around even after Elliot continuously pushes her away. As a child, she endured more abuse from their mother than Elliot did. And Darlene is Elliot's only connection to the real world. And this makes a lot more sense as you finish the series and you see that real Elliot was stuck in an infinite loop inside of his head, and he was never, able to get out because Mastermind had taken over. And in this infinite loop, Darlene is not there. Well, we find out Darlene is not there, not because Elliot doesn't love her, but Darlene is not there because he sees her as his only link to reality. So even though we have an unreliable narrator throughout the show, the only constant we know is that Darlene is real, Darlene cares, she is real, she's not a delusion. That is the only constant that we for sure know, given that we have such an unreliable narrator. So Angela, and I don't really have time to go through all of Angela, but she was never able to heal after losing her mother. She's consumed by grief. She was so young when her mother passed away, and her mother made the mistake of telling her that she would see her again. Now, I know her mother was talking about heaven, but Angela took it a different way. This is why it was so easy for White Rose to manipulate her, because White Rose, does believe that her quantum machine will bring back the dead. So when Angela got wind of the quantum machine, she was like, "Oh yeah, I'll see my mom again. Like I knew all of this would happen because I was told this when I was a child." This is why she was so easily able to go through a stage 2 and kill all of those people, because she thought that the quantum machine would bring them back. She thought that stage 2 would help her fulfill the hope of bringing her mother back, because she suffered from major delusions. And it's almost like hope was a very dangerous thing. It's just serves as sort of a cautionary tale about how dangerous hope can actually be. White Rose. Okay, so White Rose is driven by the guilt and immense pain that she feels over her lover's death. The pain that stems from watching him kill himself because he knows that they can never truly be together is what motivated her to form the Deus group and create her quantum machine. She chose to let her pain build and fester into something much more toxic and destructive. The irony with her character is that she desperately wants to find a way out of her pain, but she refuses to allow herself to find that way out. She sticks herself in this recursive loop of denial and delusion. And that's why she ultimately ends up dead, because she would rather die than face that she was wrong and that her machine doesn't work. And she would rather die than break her loop. She chose that. She chose death over moving on, healing from her pain and finding a way to be happy again. So the creation of F Society, the 5-9 hack, they were all part of Mastermind's plan to rid the world of evil and make it a safer place for real Elliot. Elliot's trauma, or more specifically, Elliot not dealing with his trauma and repressing it, is the reason why F Society was created. It's the reason why the 5-9 hack happened. Mastermind finally realizes that he cannot keep avoiding the things that hurt him. He has to confront his pain, accept his reality for what it is, and find ways to healthily and productively move on from his traumatic experiences. If he doesn't, he will end up like White Rose, who, if she didn't kill herself, would have lived the rest of her life continuously denying reality and therefore denying herself the chance to be truly happy again. So I believe truly that 5-9 and F Society happened because of the abuse Elliot, endured as a child. If that abuse wouldn't have happened, I don't think 5-9 would have happened. And I think that the vehicle, his trauma was the vehicle that led him to 5-9, and it led him to F Society, because Mastermind thought that this was the only way to make the world a better place for Elliot, is to get rid of E Corp. So thanks for listening.